Alright guys, today we're going to be doing valve cover gaskets on the 128i N52. I made a video doing a starter that shows how to do all this, so I'll leave a link to that. Get the cover off. This one's missing a couple of bolts, so it made it way easier. Next, we're going to get this strut brace out of the way. This is external Torx 14. That one's a E18. Pulls out. Then we're going to get the ignition coils out. Just lift up on the tabs, pull the wiring harness out, and then pop them out. We're going to do these grounds. We're going to try to get all these wires out the way. This little plastic cover is held down. I like to use pick tools to get in there and do stuff like this. Makes it way easier. Plastic pops off. A little tricky, but some finesse, you can get it off. Then we're going to pull the O2 sensor connectors out. And the fuel injector harness. You just go through and pry near the fuel injectors and it'll pop up. It's a little bit violent. Just be careful. Then get all the rest of these connectors at the front of the engine. Use a little screwdriver to get in there and push down on the locking tab. Then we're going to remove the Valvetronic motor. It's got some tension on it. I didn't put it in the service position. Just make sure that when you're removing it, you know that it's going to come out at you. And then when I put it back in, just make sure to get it seated and push it in and reapply the same amount of tension there. Then you're going to get this vacuum hose at the back of the engine. It's a little bit tricky. Be super careful because these are always really fragile. You can break them really easy. Wouldn't be a bad idea to get an extra one just in case. Then remove all these studs in the middle. Pretty sure they're a 10mm. Magnet tools saved my life so many times. E10s. Then you're going to want to go around the perimeter and get all of those bolts loosened up. Starts to get a little bit tricky once you get to the back. And then for this next one, you're going to have to use a universal. A little tight back there. You gotta play around with extensions in the universal, but you can get it. Once you get them all loosened up, pry up a little bit, get the valve cover moving. It's going to be really tight. There's spark plug tubes inside of the holes that some people remove beforehand. I think the next time that I do it, I'll try to remove them beforehand, but you can definitely get it out without removing them. You just have to have a little bit of finesse. You'll see that I removed the e-box cover and the windshield cowl seal. Just make sure you get all the wires out the way and should come out. There goes the e-box cover. Super easy, just lifts up on the tabs and it pops out. Give you a little bit more room to work with the wiring. And now it's sitting on the windshield cowl. I pulled that seal out of the way. And there's enough room. If you angle it forward, it should come out. Using the pick tool here to get the old gasket out. Clean it all up a little bit. And then reinstall the new gasket. Make sure it's all nice and seated, and go ahead and clean up your mating surface a little bit. Just pull those spark plug tubes out just to make it easier to get the thing back in. And a little bit of finesse, you get it back in. Make sure it's seated right. I think that's it. Fuck yeah. And that your gasket hasn't slipped off at all. And then you can start putting it all back together. Kind of want to go around evenly, like starting at the middle and working your way out. Get it all tightened down in a couple of stages. And then once you get it to where you're about to get them snugged up, switch over to the torque wrench and torque them all down to 7 foot-pounds. You gotta get creative with the extensions and the universal joints. It's just really tight to work on this thing. Push those spark plug tubes back in. I used a pair of needle nose, kind of get them seated. And they'll click in so you know when they're seated. Get the back ones in. I'm putting that Valvetronic seal on. Couldn't find a torque spec on these, so I just snugged them up. Don't go too tight, it's pretty dainty. And then that Valvetronic motor, just push it back in, keep tension on it. There is a way to like take it out with a 4mm Allen key, or if you have the software to do it, you can put it into the service position. But I didn't find that either of those were really necessary. I do have the software though, so if I ran into issues with it, I would have been able to reset it. Torque the Valvetronic motor down. I start putting all the wiring back and clipping everything back into place. Take your time here, maybe take a couple pictures before you take it apart, that way you can see how everything's routed and get it all back right. Pushing those fuel injector connectors. Reroute your oxygen sensor wiring. Some people like to mark these just to make sure that they don't get them mixed up. You can have a lot of running issues if you do. We're going to change the seal here in the front too. Pry up gently on it and it'll pop out. It's a 32mm socket. Push down and it'll go right back in. Pretty straightforward from here. Start plugging stuff in and making sure everything's where it should be. Went ahead and tested it beforehand. Before I put it all back together, just to make sure that I wouldn't have any issues. I have to take that Valvetronic motor back out. Everything was fine, no check engine lights, no rough idling. So I went ahead and put all this back together and called it a day.